Hello everyone and welcome. Today's video we're going to talk about a scenario that is, I think, very common for people that are pressed for time, that have to read a lot very quickly. So this actually stemmed from a conversation this morning I had with one of my coworkers here. His name is Amir, and he's in college right now, and he has a 300-page book that he has to read and write a short 4-page paper on in 2 days. 300-page book. He's on page 5. So he's got a lot of ground to cover here. And this is not the book, but this is just another type of like textbook. In case anybody ever else has this kind of scenario where you have to get through, this is around 280 pages here. It's money, a history. So it's a history book about money. But in his case, it's a history of film that he's working on. But let's say it's a similar example. So let's say you're pressed for time, and even if you've got a fast reading speed, you might not be able to get through all of this in the next 2 days if you're only on page 5 and you got 295 more pages to go. So what do we do in this scenario? And you have to do a paper on it. What I would do is, well, obviously you read the back. This book has a little introduction at the beginning. Of course, we'll look at the table of contents. And then from there, I would read the entire introduction. But then when we get to chapter 1, there's a little quote at the top of this book and also a little introduction, a couple paragraphs there. I'm gonna read that. And then I'm going to just read all the headings and subheadings, and I'll glance at the pictures, and I'm just kind of flipping because I'm on a time crunch. I've got to crank out a paper. Now, while I'm going through this, I am actually going to be kind of mapping out the ideas that I want to include in my paper. So we like to create a mind map, which is a nice visual presentation. So I would actually be creating a little mind map based on maybe interesting points that I see from the headings. But I'm not going to do a lot of reading here. It's really just kind of scanning and skimming through the text. Where we are going to read is anytime we have headings and subheadings. Now, when you get to the end of a chapter, so here we have the end, we have a nice little conclusion there, you'd read all that. So introduction, conclusion, and in between any headings. After I'm done with chapter 1, and there are 9 chapters in this book, after I'm done with chapter 1, I'm going to add to my mind map. And one of the things that I would do is maybe add places where I think I should focus content for my paper. So if at the end of this chapter, I read this conclusion and I realize, whoa, there's a nice little tidbit from the conclusion of chapter 1, I need to include something about that in my paper. Obviously, I'm not going to plagiarize this, but I maybe need to paraphrase the information in my own words. But what I'll do on my mind map is I'll just note, okay, page 38. Maybe I'll put a little star here next to the paragraph. And then I move on to chapter 2. Read the introduction and all the headings. And when I get to the end of chapter 2, I'm going to read the conclusion to chapter 2, as you see right over here, just a couple paragraphs. So really, it's about reading the introduction, conclusion, going through all the headings and subheadings. And because you're pressed for time and you know you're not going to be able to read all of this, but let's say you got to put together a 4-page summary of this 300-page document. In this case, it's a sort of like a textbook. That's how we would fly through it. Now, when we do our speed reading and memorization courses, we call this strategy an inspection of the material. It's sort of like your step 1. Before you read anything, you should always inspect it. Reading a chapter in a book, well, look at your headings, look at your subheadings, read the introduction, read the conclusion, get a good feel for the chapter. It's like warming up and stretching out. But this is kind of a time crunch scenario where you know I'm not going to be able to get through all the content maybe because you're juggling other classes, maybe you also have work, you got to go to school. So in these kind of emergency scenarios, you're basically inspecting the entire book. Introduction, conclusion, all the headings. And while you're doing that, you're making a little mind map of what you're going to be including in your paper. It's not the same as an outline. A mind map is kind of like a big picture view. So next time you've got to go through some information in an emergency time crunch, and hopefully Amir is going to be able to get through all this content. He's actually behind the camera right now. Shout out to Amir. Hopefully he'll be able to fly through this content and be able to pick up the most important tidbits with that kind of a strategy. Now, one other thing I want to mention, we just launched a Cyber Monday deal. And for the YouTube audience that we have here, we're going to have that extended. If you go to the link on your screen or the link you see in the description, we'll post that link there so that you can still get that deal for the next few days or so. We will eventually have to pull that deal down. So if you're watching this at some point in the far future from when we recorded this, sorry about that. But it's a Cyber Monday deal. It's our best deal of the year where you can get a discount on any of our speed reading, memory, or productivity courses. Hope you get a chance to check that out, and Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We are going to be posting these videos on a very regular basis, so you'll be getting more videos related to reading, comprehension, memory, and other productivity tips. Thanks for watching.